My controlling dad is forcing our daughter to quit the one thing they love. The sound of Emma's bedroom door slamming rattled the entire upstairs hallway at 8:47 p.m. on a Tuesday that changed everything. I stood frozen at the bottom of our staircase, still clutching the dinner plate I'd been carrying to the kitchen, listening to my 14-year-old daughter's muffled sobs through 2 inches of oak wood. "She'll get over it," David said from his recliner, not even bothering to look up from his phone where he was scrolling through golf equipment on eBay. Again. It's about time she learned that life isn't all tutus and twirling around. My hands tightened around the ceramic plate until my knuckles went white. 3 hours earlier, I'd watched my husband deliver the crushing news to Emma with all the emotional sensitivity of a sledgehammer. No discussion. No family meeting. Just a cold, final decree that competitive dance was over, effective immediately. "David, she's been dancing since she was 6, I said, setting the plate down before I dropped it. "This isn't just some hobby. Coach Martinez thinks she has real potential for scholarships." "Scholarships?" He finally looked up, his face twisted in that particular expression of disgust I'd grown to despise over our 16 years of marriage. "Sarah, wake up. She's prancing around in skimpy costumes while grown men judge her body. It's inappropriate, and I'm done pretending otherwise." The familiar knot formed in my stomach. This was David's pattern, taking something beautiful and twisting it into something dirty. Emma's dance performances were artistic, athletic, and she absolutely radiated joy on that stage. I'd watched her confidence bloom over the past 2 years since she made the elite competition team at Riverside Dance Academy. "Those judges are evaluating technique and artistry," I said, hating how my voice already sounded defensive. "And the costumes are no different from what gymnasts wear." "Don't." His voice dropped to that dangerous low tone that used to make me immediately back down. "I've made my decision. The $400 a month for lessons, the costume fees, the travel expenses, it's ridiculous. That money could go towards something actually useful. Like his golf membership at the country club. Like his new titanium driver that cost $600 last month. Like a golf trip to Scottsdale he'd already booked for March." But I didn't say any of that out loud. Not yet. Upstairs, Emma's crying had quieted to occasional hiccups, which somehow felt worse than the initial storm. I thought about her face 3 hours ago when David announced his decision. The way her bright smile had just disappeared. How her shoulders had sagged like someone had literally deflated her spirit. "She made the elite team, David. Do you know how competitive that is? Only 12 girls in the entire program." "Enough." He stood up abruptly, all 6'2" of him towering over me in that intimidating way he'd perfected over the years. "I'm the father, and I'm saying no. End of discussion." But it wasn't the end. Not this time. As I listened to my daughter's heartbreak echoing through our house, something shifted inside me. Maybe it was seeing Emma's pure devastation. Maybe it was watching David dismiss her dreams like they were nothing more than an inconvenience to his budget. Or maybe I was just finally tired of watching him control every aspect of our lives. I pulled my phone from my back pocket and opened the voice recording app I downloaded last week after David's explosive rant about Emma's dance obsession. My finger hovered over the record button as he continued his tirade. It was time to start gathering evidence. "You know what your problem is, Sarah?" David's voice grew louder as he started pacing between the kitchen island and the living room. I kept my phone hidden behind my back, finger pressed firmly on the record button. "You enable her ridiculous fantasies instead of preparing her for the real world. Dancing is real, David. She could get into colleges we could never afford otherwise. Juilliard, NYU, even state schools offer substantial dance scholarships." "Juilliard?" He let out a harsh laugh that made me flinch. "Jesus Christ, you're both delusional. Emma's good for a small-town studio, but she's not some prodigy. You're setting her up for massive disappointment, and I won't be part of it anymore." The casual cruelty in his voice made my chest tighten. Emma was exceptional. I'd seen her perform alongside girls who'd gone on to prestigious dance programs. Coach Martinez had specifically told us that Emma's technique and stage presence were college level already. "Coach Martinez wants to enter her in the regional championships in February," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "The winner gets a full scholarship to elite dance camp this summer. That's a $3,000 value." "Oh, here we go with Martinez again." David's face flushed red, the way it always did when he was building toward one of his explosive episodes. "That woman has you convinced Emma's the next prima ballerina so she can keep collecting her monthly fees. It's a scam, Sarah. Can't you see that?" I thought about Coach Martinez, a former professional dancer who'd performed with the Boston Ballet before opening her studio. The woman who stayed after class to work with Emma on her turns. Who'd driven to competitions on her own time because she believed in her students. Maria Martinez danced professionally for 8 years. She knows talent when she sees it. "Maria?" David's voice turned mocking. "You're on a first-name basis now? What's next, coffee dates where she convinces you to take out a second mortgage for Emma's dance career?" My phone felt hot in my hand as I kept recording. I needed him to keep talking, to show his true colors. But I also felt sick listening to him tear down everything Emma loved. "The spring showcase is next month," I said quietly. "Emma's been rehearsing her solo for 12 weeks. She's so excited to perform it for us." "Well, she can perform it in our living room one last time, because that showcase isn't happening. I already called the studio this afternoon." My blood went cold. "You what?" "I spoke to the receptionist, Jennifer, I think. Told her Emma wouldn't be returning after this week. They have a 30-day cancellation policy, so her last day is December 15th. December 15th. 3 weeks away. 3 weeks to watch my daughter's world crumble completely. David, you can't just, the other girls on her team are counting on her. They've been preparing group routines. Not my problem." He grabbed his beer from the coffee table and took a long drink. "Maybe this will teach her about commitment and follow-through in the real world. Actions have consequences." Upstairs, a door opened quietly. We both froze. Emma's soft footsteps crossed the hallway toward the bathroom, and I heard the click of the lock. Even her walk sounded defeated. "Look what you've done to her," I whispered. "What I've done?" David's voice rose again. "I'm trying to save this family from financial ruin while you throw money at impossible dreams. That studio has collected over $4,800 from us this year alone. Do you know what we could have done with that money? I knew exactly what we could have done. And I knew exactly what David wanted to do with the money instead. But for the first time in our marriage, I was planning too. The next morning, I waited until David left for his 7 a.m. client meeting before creeping upstairs to Emma's room. She was sitting at her desk, staring blankly at her algebra homework, still in the same clothes from yesterday. Sweetheart? I knocked softly on her doorframe. Can we talk? She didn't look up. What's the point? Dad's already decided everything. I sat on the edge of her bed, studying my daughter's profile. The dark circles under her eyes told me she'd slept about as well as I had. Emma, I need you to know that I'm not giving up on this. That got her attention. She turned in her chair, and the hope that flickered across her face nearly broke my heart. Mom, Dad already called the studio. Jennifer told me yesterday when I got there for practice. She said it was really awkward. My stomach clenched. I'd been hoping David was bluffing about that call. What exactly did Jennifer say? That Dad told her I was quitting immediately and demanded a refund for this month's tuition. Coach Martinez had to come to the front desk because Jennifer didn't know what to say. Emma's voice cracked. Coach Martinez looked so confused. Mom. She asked if something was wrong at home. Jesus. David hadn't just canceled Emma's classes, he'd humiliated her in front of her coach and teammates. I could picture the scene, my competent, talented daughter standing there while her father's harsh words echoed through the studio lobby. What did you tell Coach Martinez? That I had to talk to you and Dad first. But everyone heard, Mom. Sophia asked if our family was having money problems. Madison said her older sister had to quit dance when her parents got divorced. Divorced. The word hung between us like a question Emma was too afraid to ask directly. Sweetheart, I'm going to fix this. I promise you. Emma shook her head, tears starting again. You can't fight Dad when he gets like this. Remember when I wanted to try out for the school musical last year? Or when I asked to take photography class instead of study hall? She was right. David had shut down both of those opportunities with the same cold finality. But this felt different. This was bigger. The regional championships are February 8th, Emma whispered. Coach Martinez said the application deadline is December 20th. Even if you changed Dad's mind somehow, I've already missed too much practice time. December 20th. 5 days after David's forced quit date. My mind raced through possibilities, obstacles, logistics. How much does it cost to enter regionals? Mom, don't. I can see you trying to figure out some way around Dad, but he'll just get angrier. You know how he gets when you go behind his back. I did know. 3 years ago, I'd secretly signed Emma up for summer art camp after David said no. When he found the charge on our credit card statement, his rage had lasted for weeks. He'd made both Emma and me pay for my betrayal in dozens of small, cruel ways. But Emma hadn't been falling apart then. She'd been disappointed about art camp, sure, but she'd bounced back. This was different. Dance wasn't just something she enjoyed, it was who she was. The entry fee is $275, Emma said quietly. Plus we'd need new competition costumes for the team routine and my solo. Probably another $400. And Coach Martinez charges extra for private coaching sessions to prepare for big competitions. Nearly $700, minimum. Money I didn't have in my personal checking account. Money David monitored carefully through our joint finances. But my sister Lisa had been telling me for months that I could call her for anything. Anything. Emma, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She studied my face for a long moment. You're really going to try to fight him on this? I'm going to do whatever it takes. 2 hours later, I was sitting in my car outside Lisa's law office, gripping my phone with sweaty palms. The recording from last night was 43 minutes long, 43 minutes of David's voice growing progressively more aggressive as he outlined exactly why our daughter's dreams were worthless. Lisa Brennan's office, the receptionist answered on the second ring. Hi, it's Sarah Coleman. Lisa's sister. Is she available for a quick call? She's in court until 3 p.m., but I can have her call you back. Is this urgent? I glanced at the clock on my dashboard, 11:47 a.m. David would be home by 5:30, expecting dinner and an update on how well Emma was adjusting to her new reality. Yes, please tell her it's about David and Emma. She'll understand. Within 10 minutes, my phone buzzed. Lisa's name appeared on the screen along with a flood of relief I hadn't realized I desperately needed. Sarah? What did that bastard do now? Even through my anxiety, I almost smiled. Lisa had never pretended to like David, not even during our wedding planning 16 years ago. She'd been the only person brave enough to ask if I was absolutely sure about marrying him. He's forcing Emma to quit dance. Permanently. He already called the studio and canceled everything. The silence on Lisa's end stretched long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. Finally, Jesus, Sarah. That kid lives and breathes dancing. I saw her perform last spring, she's incredible. I recorded him last night. 43 minutes of him explaining why Emma's dreams are inappropriate and delusional. My voice cracked on the last word. Lisa, she's falling apart. She didn't eat breakfast this morning, didn't brush her hair. Yesterday she was this confident, glowing teenager, and now. Send me that recording. Right now. What? Email it to me at my personal address. sarah.coleman@brennanlaw.com. Wait, that's not right. Send it to lisa.brennan@gmail. I want to hear exactly what we're dealing with. We. She'd said we. Lisa, I need to ask you something, and I hate that I have to. Money, she said immediately. How much? The directness of it made my throat tight. I can't let Emma miss regional championships. The entry fee is $275, costumes are around $400, and Coach Martinez charges $80 per private lesson. Emma would need at least 6 sessions to catch up after missing practice time. I could hear Lisa typing in the background, probably calculating. $275 plus $400 plus $480. So roughly $1,200 to get her competition ready. I'll pay you back. I don't know how yet, but... Sarah, stop. Do you remember what I told you at Christmas last year? I did remember. Lisa had cornered me in Mom's kitchen while David was monopolizing the TV with football games. She'd said that David's control over our finances was financial abuse, and that she had money set aside specifically for the day I was ready to fight back. You said you'd been waiting for me to ask for help. Exactly. I've been watching him isolate you and Emma for years. This dance thing? It's not really about money or appropriateness. It's about making sure Emma doesn't have anything in her life that he doesn't control. She was right. Dance was the one place where Emma shined independently, where she had her own relationships and achievements that had nothing to do with David's approval. There's something else, I said, watching a young mother push a stroller past my car. Emma mentioned that Madison's sister had to quit dance when her parents got divorced. Lisa, I think Emma's expecting. Are you? Expecting that? The question I'd been avoiding for months hung between us. Was I finally ready to admit that this marriage was destroying both Emma and me? I don't know. Maybe. But right now, I just need to save Emma's championship opportunity. Everything else can wait until after February 8th. Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, I'm transferring $1,500 to your personal account right now. Don't argue, you'll need extra for unexpected costs. Second, I want you to meet with Coach Martinez this afternoon and explain the situation. Not the full situation, just that there's been a family disagreement about Emma's dance schedule that you're working to resolve. I fumbled for a pen in my purse. Lisa, what if David finds out? What if he checks my account statements? Does he monitor your personal checking account daily? No, but he reviews all our statements at the end of each month. It's December 12th, I'd have less than 3 weeks before he sees the transactions. Then we make sure this works fast. Sarah, send me that recording right now, while I have you on the phone. I want to hear his exact words. I pulled up my voice memos and hit send, my heart hammering as 43 minutes of David's venom launched into cyberspace. Lisa, what if this backfires? What if he gets so angry that he makes Emma's life even worse? What if you do nothing and watch your daughter sink into depression? Because that's what's happening, Sarah. I've seen it in domestic abuse cases. When the controlling partner cuts off the victim's main source of joy and identity, it's psychological warfare. Psychological warfare. The clinical term made David's behavior sound even more sinister. The recording is sending now, I said, watching the progress bar creep forward. 47 megabytes. Good. I'll listen to it after court and call you tonight. In the meantime, go talk to Coach Martinez. Feel her out about a payment plan or reduced rates. Sometimes studios will work with families going through difficult transitions. Difficult transitions. Lisa's careful lawyer language for your husband is a controlling asshole. What do I tell Emma? Nothing yet. Don't give her hope until we know Coach Martinez can accommodate the timeline. But Sarah? Start documenting everything. Every conversation with David about Emma, every decision he makes without consulting you, every time he raises his voice or makes Emma cry. Dates, times, witnesses if possible. I thought about Emma's defeated posture at breakfast, how she barely touched her cereal. He's already doing damage. Yesterday she was excited about her algebra test today, she'd been studying for weeks. This morning she told me she didn't care about her grades anymore because what's the point? Write that down. Today's date, Emma's exact words, the context. If this escalates to custody issues, we need a clear pattern of how his controlling behavior affects Emma's well-being. Custody issues. The phrase sent ice through my veins and relief in equal measure. I have to go, I said, noticing a text from Emma, asterisk dad called school. I have to come straight home after classes. No staying for study hall asterisk. Even from his office, David was tightening his control. Sarah, one more thing. Change your phone passcode today. If David has been checking your texts or calls, he can't know about our conversations. I hadn't even considered that possibility, but David had asked to use my phone several times recently when his battery died. Had he been monitoring my communications? I'll change it now. Text me after you talk to Coach Martinez. Use my personal number, not the office. And Sarah? You're doing the right thing. Emma deserves to have at least one parent fighting for her dreams. After we hung up, I sat in my car for 10 more minutes, letting the magnitude of what I'd just started sink in. I'd crossed a line, accepting money from Lisa, planning to go behind David's back, actively deceiving my husband about our daughter's activities. But for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I was moving towards something instead of just enduring. My phone buzzed with a bank notification, asterisk deposit, $1,500. Available immediately asterisk. I started the car and headed toward Riverside Dance Academy, where Coach Martinez was about to become my co-conspirator. The Riverside Dance Academy lobby smelled like rosin and hope, a combination that usually made me smile. Today, it just reminded me how much Emma stood to lose. Through the glass doors leading to Studio A, I could see the elite competition team running through their group routine, their synchronized movements sharp and precise. Emma should have been in there with them. Coach Martinez emerged from her office at exactly 3:15 p.m., her dark hair pulled back in the same elegant bun she'd worn for as long as I'd known her. She spotted me immediately and crossed the lobby with quick, purposeful steps. Mrs. Coleman, I'm so glad you called. I've been worried sick about Emma since yesterday's conversation with your husband. The way she said conversation told me David had been even worse on the phone than I'd imagined. Maria, I need to apologize for however David spoke to you and your staff. That wasn't acceptable. She gestured toward her office. Please, let's talk privately. Her office walls were covered with photos of former students, girls in college dance programs, professional company headshots, competition trophies. Emma's smiling face appeared in at least a dozen pictures from the past 2 years. I'll be direct, Mrs. Coleman. In 23 years of teaching, I've never had a parent call to withdraw a student the way your husband did yesterday. He was aggressive. Accusatory. Jennifer was actually shaking after she handed the phone to me. My face burned with embarrassment. What exactly did he say to Jennifer? He demanded an immediate refund and accused us of exploiting young girls for profit. When Jennifer tried to explain our 30-day cancellation policy, he started shouting about how we were trying to steal money from hardworking families. Maria's expression darkened. Then he told her that Emma had been brainwashed by our program and that dance was inappropriate for teenagers. I closed my eyes, imagining poor Jennifer, barely 19 and working part-time while attending community college, dealing with David's fury. Maria, I'm here because I don't agree with my husband's decision. Emma belongs on that competition team. I was hoping you'd say that. She leaned forward, her voice dropping conspiratorially. Mrs. Coleman, Emma has the most natural stage presence I've seen in a decade. She's not just talented, she's special. The kind of special that changes trajectories. David thinks we're all delusional. That you're just telling us what we want to hear to keep collecting tuition. Maria's laugh was sharp and humorless. I wish your husband understood how this business actually works. If I told every parent their child was scholarship material, word would get out quickly and I'd lose credibility with college programs. I stake my reputation on my recommendations. She pulled a thick folder from her desk drawer. These are scholarship offers and acceptances from my former students over the past 5 years. Juilliard, Purchase, Point Park, University of Arizona. 14 full scholarships totaling over $280,000 in value. The numbers made my head spin. You really think Emma could? I don't think, Mrs. Coleman. I know. But she needs regional championships on her resume. College scouts attend regionals specifically to identify prospects for their programs. February 8th suddenly felt impossibly important and terrifyingly close. The application deadline is December 20th. That's 8 days away. Which brings me to my proposal. Maria opened Emma's file. I spoke with the other elite team members after class today. They want Emma back for regionals. Sophia actually started crying when she thought Emma might not be there for their group routine. The thought of Emma's teammates rallying around her made my throat tight. Maria, I need to be completely honest with you. My husband has forbidden Emma from returning to dance. If I re-enroll her, I'll have to do it secretly. She'd need to come directly here after school and I'd pick her up before my husband gets home from work. Instead of looking shocked, Maria nodded grimly. I've seen this before, unfortunately. Controlling parents who view their child's independence as a threat. She paused. Are you prepared for the consequences if your husband discovers what we're doing? That was the question that had kept me awake all night. David's rage when he found out, and he would find out eventually, would be nuclear. But the alternative was watching Emma disappear into herself completely. I'm prepared to protect my daughter's future. Then here's what I'm willing to do. Maria pulled out a calculator. Normal tuition for the next 6 weeks would be $400. Private coaching sessions for regionals preparation would typically cost $480. I'll do it all for $300 total, and Emma can pay me back with work-study hours this summer if needed. I stared at her. Maria, you can't subsidize Emma's training. That's not fair to your business. Mrs. Coleman, I subsidize promising students all the time. It's an investment in their future and my program's reputation. She smiled. Besides, Emma helps demonstrate techniques for my younger classes. She's already earning her keep. The relief was overwhelming. Between Lisa's $1,500 transfer and Maria's reduced rates, we could actually pull this off. What about the competition entry fee and costumes? Entry fee is $275, due by December 20th. For costumes, I have extras from previous years that should fit Emma. We'll make it work. I pulled out my phone to check the time, 3:47 p.m. David would be home by 5:30, expecting to find Emma doing homework and adjusting well to her new dance-free reality. When could Emma start back? Tomorrow. But Mrs. Coleman, she'll need to commit fully. Missing practices now would be devastating to team morale and her own preparation. Are you absolutely certain you can maintain this schedule without your husband finding out? David's work schedule was predictable, client meetings until 5 p.m., home by 5:30, dinner by 6:30. Emma could easily attend 4 to 5:15 practices if I picked her up promptly. We can do this, I said, surprised by the certainty in my voice. But Maria, Emma can't know about the financial arrangement with my sister or the reduced rates. She's already worried about causing problems between her father and me. Of course. As far as Emma knows, you've simply worked things out with your husband. We shook hands across her desk, and I felt like I was signing a declaration of war. Because that's exactly what this was, a war for Emma's soul, fought in secret practices and hidden car rides and carefully managed schedules. One more thing, Maria said as I stood to leave. Emma will need to know that this arrangement is temporary. Whatever's happening in your family, it needs to be resolved before regional championships. I won't put her through the trauma of preparing for competition only to have it ripped away again. February 8th, 7 weeks to either fix my marriage or end it. I understand, I said, though I had no idea how I'd keep that promise. As I walked back through the lobby, I could see Emma's teammates still practicing. Their dedication and synchronization reminded me exactly what David was trying to take away from our daughter. I pulled out my phone and texted Emma, pick up at usual spot after school tomorrow. We're comfortable close, Her response came immediately, Mom, what's happening? Trust me, I typed back. Just trust me. The next afternoon, I watched Emma's face transform the moment she walked through the dance studio doors. Her shoulders straightened, her step quickened, and for the first time in 48 hours, she looked like my daughter again instead of a ghost haunting our house. Sarah. Sophia Martinez, Coach Martinez's daughter and Emma's best friend on the team, practically tackled Emma in a hug. We thought you were gone forever. Your dad sounded so angry on the phone yesterday. Emma glanced at me nervously. My mom worked something out, she said carefully. I can come back, but we had to keep it quiet for a while. I'd coached her on this during the drive over. Simple truth, Mom and Dad were still discussing the details, but she could return to practice while we figured things out. Emma was smart enough to read between the lines. Girls, let's focus on catching Emma up, Coach Martinez called from across the studio. We've modified the group routine twice since Tuesday, and regionals application is due Monday. Monday. December 20th. 4 days away. As the girls launched into their warm-up routine, I settled into my usual spot in the parent viewing area. Normally, I'd use this time to scroll through emails or plan dinner. Today, I watched every movement, memorizing the joy on Emma's face as she fell back into sync with her teammates. My phone buzzed with a text from David, running late. Client meeting went long. Start dinner without me, Relief flooded through me. An extra hour before I had to face his questions about how Emma was adjusting to life without dance. But then another message appeared, this one from a number I didn't recognize. Asterisk Mrs. Coleman, this is Jennifer from Riverside Dance. I have your husband online too, and he's asking about Emma's schedule. He says she should be home doing homework. What should I tell him? Asterisk. My blood turned to ice. David was calling the studio. Right now. While Emma was inside dancing. I shot up from my chair and rushed to the front desk, where Jennifer looked pale and panicked. She was holding the phone receiver away from her ear, and I could hear David's raised voice even from 3 feet away. Give me the phone, I whispered urgently. Completely unacceptable that you people think you can ignore a parent's direct instructions. David, it's me. I pressed the phone to my ear, my heart hammering. Sarah? What the hell are you doing there? And don't even think about lying to me. Through the glass doors, I could see Emma in the middle of a complex lift sequence, her face glowing with concentration. She had no idea her world was about to explode again. I brought Emma to get her things, I said, the lie sliding out smoother than I'd expected. Her dance bag, her shoes, some personal items she left in the changing room. Her things? It takes an hour and a half to collect some shoes? I checked the time on the desk phone display, 4:52 p.m. We'd been here for 47 minutes. How was David tracking our time so precisely? David, where are you calling from? My office. I tried calling Emma's cell to check on her homework progress, and it went straight to voicemail. So I called the house. No answer. Then I remembered you mentioning something about errands, so I called your cell. Also voicemail. His voice was getting that dangerous edge. So I decided to call the one place I specifically told Emma she was never allowed to go again. My mind raced. Emma always turned her phone off during practice, it was a studio rule. And I'd left my phone in the car to avoid exactly this kind of interruption. I was helping her pack up her things properly, I said. You know how emotional she's been. I thought it would be easier if I was there to support her through saying goodbye to her friends. The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if he'd hung up. Finally, put Emma on the phone. Now. Through the glass, Emma was mid-leap, her body perfectly aligned in a grand jeté that would have made professional dancers jealous. Calling her out of practice now would shatter the magic of this moment and expose everything. She's in the changing room, I lied. Getting her things together. David, she's pretty upset about saying goodbye to everyone. Maybe we could talk about this at home? I want to talk to someone in charge. Put Martinez on the phone. Coach Martinez was currently spotting Emma through a series of difficult turns, her hands steady and encouraging. If she came to the phone now, David would hear the music, the voices of active practice, the unmistakable sounds of ongoing classes. Maria's with another family right now, I said. David, I promise you, we're just collecting Emma's belongings and saying proper goodbyes. We'll be home by 6. 6:15, he said coldly. And Sarah? If I find out you're lying to me about any of this, there will be consequences. For both of you. The line went dead. I stood there for a moment, phone still pressed to my ear, Jennifer watching me with wide eyes. Through the studio doors, Emma hit a perfect triple turn, her smile radiant as her teammates cheered. Mrs. Coleman? Jennifer whispered. Are you okay? I wasn't okay. I was terrified, exhilarated, and completely committed to a path that was going to destroy my marriage one way or another. Jennifer, I need you to do me a favor, I said quietly. If my husband calls here again asking about Emma, you need to tell him she's not here and hasn't been here. Can you do that? She nodded quickly. Should I tell Coach Martinez what's happening? She already knows, I said, watching Emma execute another flawless sequence. We're all protecting Emma now. At 6:07 p.m., I pulled into our driveway with Emma practically glowing in the passenger seat. She'd nailed every combination Coach Martinez threw at her, and her teammates had welcomed her back like she'd never left. For an hour and 15 minutes, she'd been herself again, confident, graceful, alive. Mom, did you see my triple turn sequence? I've been working on that for months, and today it finally clicked. Emma gathered her dance bag from the back seat, moving with that familiar dancer's posture I'd missed so desperately. Sophia said the group routine looks amazing now that we're all back together. I wanted to bottle this moment, Emma's excitement, her flushed cheeks, the way she couldn't stop talking about choreography and upcoming performances. Because I knew what waited for us inside the house. Remember what we discussed, I said quietly as we approached the front door. Dad thinks we went to collect your things and say goodbye. You were emotional, I was helping you through it, and now it's over. Emma's smile faded slightly. I hate lying to him. You're not lying. You're protecting something beautiful until I can make it safe. The front door opened before we could reach it. David stood in the doorway, still wearing his charcoal business suit, his expression unreadable. Behind him, I could smell something burning in the kitchen. There you are. His voice was eerily calm. How did the goodbye go, sweetheart? Emma glanced at me, then back at her father. It was hard, Dad. But I got all my stuff. She held up her dance bag as evidence. Good. That's good. David's eyes shifted to me. Sarah, dinner's been interesting. I had to turn off the stove when whatever you were cooking started smoking. My stomach dropped. In all the chaos with David's phone call, I'd completely forgotten about the chicken I'd put in the oven before leaving for Emma's practice. David, I'm so sorry. I was distracted and... Distracted by what, exactly? Helping Emma pack a dance bag shouldn't require that much concentration. Emma squeezed past both of us toward the stairs. I'm going to put my stuff away and start homework, she said quickly, clearly sensing the tension. Actually, Emma, stay here for a minute. David's voice stopped her mid-step. I want to hear about your afternoon. Tell me about saying goodbye to your dance friends. I watched my 14-year-old daughter's face carefully arrange itself into an expression of controlled sadness. It was really hard, Dad. Sophia started crying, and Madison kept asking if I was sure I had to quit. Her voice wavered slightly, not entirely acting. Coach Martinez said she understood, but she looked disappointed. David nodded approvingly. I'm sure it was difficult, but you'll see this was the right decision. You'll have more time for academics now, more time for family activities. What kind of family activities? Emma asked, and I caught the slight edge in her voice. Well, I've been thinking we should plan a family vacation for spring break. Maybe somewhere warm. Golf courses and beaches. David smiled like he was offering her the world. Much better use of the money we were wasting on dance classes. Emma's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That sounds nice, Dad. Excellent. Now, why don't you go start your homework while your mother and I discuss dinner arrangements? As Emma disappeared upstairs, David's friendly facade evaporated instantly. He stepped closer to me, lowering his voice to that dangerous whisper I'd learned to fear over the years. Sarah, I called the studio again 20 minutes ago. My heart stopped. What? Just to confirm that you'd actually left when you said you would. Funny thing, that same receptionist told me you'd been gone for 10 minutes. But according to my calculations, you didn't pull into our driveway until 6:07. That's at least a 15-minute discrepancy. I could feel sweat forming along my hairline. I stopped for gas. And we sat in the parking lot for a few minutes because Emma was upset. Which gas station? The question was a trap. David knew every gas station between the dance studio and our house. He'd driven that route himself dozens of times over the past 2 years. If I named the wrong one, or if he decided to check security cameras. The Shell station on Maple Street, I said, choosing the one closest to our house. Emma was crying and didn't want to come home upset, so we sat in the car until she felt better. David studied my face like he was reading a legal document for loopholes. You sat in a gas station parking lot for 15 minutes consoling our daughter about leaving dance class. Yes. And during this 15-minute consolation session, what exactly did you say to help her feel better? Another trap. If I said the wrong thing, if my story contradicted something Emma might say later, David would have his proof that I was lying. I told her that sometimes we have to give up things we love for the good of the family. That you made this decision because you love her and want what's best for her future. The words tasted like poison in my mouth. I reminded her that she's talented in many areas, not just dance. David's expression shifted slightly, and I realized I'd said exactly what he wanted to hear. Good. That's exactly the message she needs to understand. From upstairs, I could hear Emma's bedroom door close with a soft click. She was probably sitting at her desk right now, staring at homework while her mind replayed every perfect moment from practice. In 7 hours, she'd be back in math class, pretending her world hadn't just been secretly restored. David, about dinner. Don't worry about dinner. I ordered pizza while you were out having your heart-to-heart with Emma. He moved toward his recliner, then paused. Sarah, I hope today gave you both the closure you needed. Because this dance chapter of Emma's life is officially closed. Permanently. I nodded and headed toward the kitchen to survey the damage from my forgotten meal. The smoke alarm hadn't gone off, but the smell of burnt chicken filled the air. As I opened windows and cleaned the ruined pan, I thought about tomorrow's practice schedule and the regional championships application due in 4 days. David thought he'd won. He thought today had been about endings and acceptance. He had no idea it had been about beginnings. The regional championships application sat on Coach Martinez's desk like a golden ticket, and I had exactly 47 minutes to make the biggest decision of my life. Mrs. Coleman, I need Emma's signature and your parental consent before 5 p.m. today, or she's out, Maria said, sliding the papers toward me. The competition committee doesn't accept late applications, period. December 20th, 4:13 p.m. David was in back-to-back client meetings until 6, Emma was in her final class of the day, and I was about to commit us to a path that would make our secret practices look like child's play. What exactly happens after I sign this? I asked, scanning the dense legal text about competition rules, media releases, and parental responsibilities. February 8th, Emma competes in front of 300 people plus college scouts. Win or lose, her name gets published in regional dance magazines. Photos go online. There's a whole social media campaign leading up to the event. Maria's expression was gentle but serious. David will find out, Mrs. Coleman. There's no way to keep regional championships secret. My pen hovered over the signature line. For 3 weeks, I'd been living a double life, picking Emma up from secret practices, lying about errands and grocery runs, watching my daughter transform back into herself one stolen hour at a time. But regionals would blow our cover completely. Mom? Emma appeared in the office doorway, still breathless from rehearsal. Coach Martinez said you needed to talk to me about something important. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. 3 weeks ago, she'd been a hollow-eyed shadow shuffling through our house like a ghost. Now her posture was straight, her eyes bright, her whole body radiating the confidence that only came from doing what she was born to do. Sweetheart, sit down. We need to discuss February 8th. Emma's face lit up like Christmas morning. Regionals? Mom, are you saying? I'm saying that entering this competition means your father will definitely find out about our arrangement. There's no hiding something this public. I set down my pen and took her hands. Emma, I need you to understand what we're risking here. What do you mean, risking? Coach Martinez quietly closed her office door, giving us privacy for what felt like the most important conversation of Emma's life. Your father will be furious when he discovers we've been defying his decision. Not just angry, absolutely livid. There will be consequences for both of us. I squeezed her hands tighter. But if we don't enter regionals, you'll miss the biggest opportunity of your dance career. College scouts, scholarship possibilities, everything we've worked toward. Emma was quiet for a long moment, processing. Finally, Mom, what kind of consequences? The question I'd been dreading. How do you explain to a 14-year-old that her parents' marriage is hanging by a thread? That choosing her dreams might mean choosing divorce? I don't know exactly. But Emma, I need you to understand that whatever happens, I will not let your father destroy your future. Not anymore. Are you and Dad going to get divorced? The directness of it took my breath away. I don't know, sweetheart. But I do know that watching you give up dance is killing both of us. You've been a different person these past 3 weeks, happier, more confident. You belong on that competition stage. Emma looked at Coach Martinez. How good are my chances? At regionals, I mean. Be honest. Maria leaned forward. Emma, in 23 years of coaching, I've had 14 students compete at regionals. 8 of them placed in the top 5. 3 got full college scholarships directly from Scout connections made at that competition. She paused. You're better than most of those girls were at your age. And if I don't compete? Then you spend the rest of your life wondering what might have been. And frankly, so do I. I checked my phone, 4:31 p.m. 29 minutes until the deadline. David would be reviewing client portfolios right now, completely unaware that his wife and daughter were about to commit an act of rebellion that would change everything. Emma, this is your choice. If you want to enter regionals, I'll sign these papers and we'll face whatever comes next together. If you think it's too risky, we'll keep doing secret practices until I figure out a different solution. Emma stared at the application forms, her finger tracing the competition logo. Mom, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think Dad will ever understand why dance is so important to me? The hope in her voice nearly broke my heart. After everything David had put her through, the cruel dismissal of her dreams, the calculated destruction of her confidence, she still wanted his approval. I think your father loves you very much, but he doesn't understand who you're becoming. And honestly, sweetheart, I don't think he wants to understand. Because understanding would mean admitting he was wrong? Smart girl. Something like that. Emma picked up the pen I'd abandoned and held it like it weighed 50 pounds. If I sign this, and Dad finds out, will you leave him? The question hung between us like a bridge we couldn't uncross. Emma, that's not a decision you should have to make. But it is, isn't it? If I compete, everything changes. If I don't compete, everything stays the same. She looked directly at me. Mom, staying the same is killing you too. I see how you tiptoe around Dad, how you apologize for things that aren't your fault. This isn't just about my dance career anymore. 4:38 p.m. 12 minutes. You're right, I whispered. This is about all of us finding the courage to choose who we want to be. Emma pressed pen to paper and signed her name in careful cursive letters. Then she slid the application toward me. Your turn, Mom. I signed my name next to hers, and the moment felt like jumping off a cliff, terrifying and liberating simultaneously. Coach Martinez immediately began making copies and filing paperwork. Emma's competition slot is confirmed. Practices moved to daily schedule starting January 2nd, 4 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Private coaching sessions twice weekly. She looked at me meaningfully. No more hiding after New Year's. This gets serious. As we walked to the car, Emma slipped her hand into mine, something she hadn't done in months. Mom? Thank you for believing in me enough to risk everything. I squeezed her hand back, knowing that in 6 weeks, we'd either be celebrating Emma's triumph or picking up the pieces of our shattered family. Maybe both. That night, I lay in bed listening to David's steady breathing and planning how to survive the next 6 weeks. Emma was registered for regionals, but the daily practices starting January 2nd would be impossible to hide. I needed a strategy that went beyond secret pickups and creative scheduling. At 3:17 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Lisa, *listen to your recording. We need to talk. Can you meet tomorrow at 10 a.m.? Starbucks on 5th Street, *. I deleted the message immediately and slipped out of bed to check on Emma. Her door was cracked open, and I could see her at her desk, writing in the journal I'd given her for her 13th birthday. She looked up when she noticed me in the doorway. I can't sleep, she whispered. I keep thinking about everything that could go wrong. What are you writing? A letter to Dad. Trying to explain why dance matters so much. She held up several crumpled pages. I've started it like 20 times, but nothing sounds right. My heart ached watching her struggle to find words that would penetrate David's wall of control. Sweetheart, your father's mind is already made up. This isn't about logic or explanations. Then what is it about? I sat on the edge of her bed, choosing my words carefully. It's about your father needing to control every aspect of our lives. Dance gives you something that's yours, talent, friendships, goals that have nothing to do with his approval. That terrifies him. Emma closed her journal and turned to face me fully. Mom, yesterday at practice, Sophia's mom asked if our family was having financial problems. When I said no, she looked really confused. What do you mean? She said when parents suddenly pull kids from expensive activities, it's usually because of money or divorce. Since it's not money. Emma's voice trailed off meaningfully. Even the other dance parents were speculating about our marriage. How long before their gossip reached someone who knew David professionally? Mrs. Martinez also asked if I felt safe at home, Emma continued quietly. She said sometimes controlling behavior escalates, and she wanted me to know I could talk to her about anything. The words sent ice through my veins. What did you tell her? That Dad's never hit us or anything like that. But Mom, the way she asked, like she's seen this before. Like she knows exactly what kind of situation we're in. At 10 a.m. sharp, I sat across from Lisa in a corner booth at Starbucks, my hands wrapped around a coffee I couldn't drink. My sister looked like she'd slept about as well as I had, her usually perfect lawyer appearance slightly rumpled. Sarah, I've listened to that recording 4 times. David's language about Emma is deeply concerning. What do you mean? Lisa pulled out a legal pad covered in notes. He doesn't just disagree with her dancing, he's systematically dismantling her self-worth. Calling her delusional, dismissing her talent as small-town mediocre, insisting she's being brainwashed by her coach. She looked up at me. This is textbook psychological abuse. The clinical term made my stomach clench. Lisa, he's never laid a hand on either of us. Abuse doesn't require physical violence. David is using isolation, financial control, and emotional manipulation to maintain power over both of you. She flipped to another page of notes. When you tried to advocate for Emma's college scholarship potential, he immediately redirected to sexual inappropriateness, grown men judging her body. That's projection designed to make you feel guilty for supporting her. I thought about Emma's defeated posture after David's announcement, how she'd stopped caring about her grades, her comment that what's the point of trying anymore. What am I supposed to do with this information? Document everything. I've already started a file. Lisa slid a manila folder across the table. Custody evaluators look for patterns of behavior that harm children's emotional development. David's systematic destruction of Emma's primary passion absolutely qualifies. Inside the folder were printed emails, bank statements showing David's golf expenditures versus Emma's dance costs, and a timeline Lisa had constructed from our phone conversations. There's something else, she said, lowering her voice. I ran a background check on David's financial accounts. Did you know he spent $1,200 on golf equipment last month alone? My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. $1,200? November 15th, titanium driver set from Dick's Sporting Goods. November 22nd, custom golf lessons with a private instructor. November 30th, golf vacation deposit for Scottsdale in March. Lisa's expression was grim. He spent more on his hobby in 1 month than Emma's entire dance program costs for 3 months. The hypocrisy was staggering. David had screamed about the financial irresponsibility of dance while secretly spending thousands on golf. Sarah, there's something I need to tell you about regionals. What about it? I called in a favor with a friend who covers regional sports for the Tribune. Emma's competition will be photographed for their Sunday arts section. If she places in the top 5, her photo and name will be published. My blood ran cold. David reads the Tribune every Sunday. Which means you have until February 8th to either convince him to support Emma's dancing or file for separation. Lisa's voice was gentle but firm. There's no middle ground anymore, Sarah. Regionals will expose everything. 6 weeks. 6 weeks to either save my marriage or end it. What if I'm making a mistake? What if Emma doesn't place well and all this destruction was for nothing? Lisa reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Sarah, the mistake would be teaching your daughter that her dreams matter less than her father's need for control. Whether Emma wins or loses, she'll know that someone fought for her. As I drove home, I realized Emma and I weren't just preparing for a dance competition anymore. We were preparing for war. January 3rd arrived with a kind of bitter cold that made everything feel sharper, more dangerous. Emma's first official daily practice was scheduled for 4 p.m., and I'd spent 3 sleepless nights crafting a cover story that could survive David's inevitable interrogation. Study group, I rehearsed in the mirror that morning. Emma joined an intensive math study group to bring up her algebra grades. Meets daily from 4 to 6:30 at the library. It wasn't entirely a lie. Emma's grades had suffered during her dance-free weeks in December, and she genuinely needed academic support. I'd even checked out math workbooks from the library to sell the story. But at 3:45 p.m., as I sat in the Riverside Dance Academy parking lot waiting for Emma's school bus, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely text her, "Ready when you are." She appeared at my passenger door within minutes, her face glowing with anticipation. Mom, I can't believe we're really doing this. Daily practices, private coaching, full competition prep. Remember, if anyone asks. Math study group at the library with Madison and 3 other kids from my algebra class, Emma recited perfectly. Mrs. Patterson is the supervising teacher, and we're working on semester review materials. I drilled her on these details for days, even creating fake homework assignments she could show David as proof. But as we walked toward the studio entrance, I felt like we were crossing into enemy territory. Sarah. Coach Martinez waved us over the moment we entered. Perfect timing. I want to show you Emma's competition schedule before practice starts. She handed me a thick packet of papers that made my stomach drop. Regional championships wasn't just a single competition, it was a 3-day festival with preliminary rounds, semifinals, and finals. Media coverage, social media promotion, and a formal awards banquet on Sunday night. This is much bigger than I realized, I whispered, scanning pages of rules, schedules, and publicity information. Regionals is the second largest dance competition on the East Coast, Maria explained. Over 400 competitors, 15 colleges sending scouts, and yes, significant media attention for winners. Emma was reading over my shoulder, her eyes getting wider with each detail. Mom, look at this. The top 3 soloists get featured in Dance Spirit magazine. And the overall champion gets invited to compete at Nationals in Las Vegas. Las Vegas. Nationals. Magazine features. David would see this coverage from space. Mrs. Coleman, I need to ask, have you told your husband about Emma's competition yet? The question I'd been dreading. We're still working out the details. Maria's expression grew serious. Because there's a parent information meeting next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Competition rules, travel arrangements, costume fittings. Both parents are expected to attend. Next Tuesday. January 9th. David would be expecting me home for dinner, not sitting in a dance studio planning Emma's competitive future. What happens if only one parent comes? I asked. Technically, you need both signatures on the travel consent forms. Emma can't compete without both parents' written permission. My heart sank. David's signature. I'd been so focused on hiding practices and managing schedules that I'd completely overlooked the legal requirements. There might be a way around that, Maria continued quietly. If you have sole custody or a court order giving you educational decision-making authority. I don't. We're still married, no legal separation. Emma had gone very quiet beside me. Mom, does this mean I can't compete after all? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with David's name on the screen. I nearly dropped it in panic. Hello? Sarah, I'm at the library. David's voice was cold and precise. I thought I'd surprise Emma by picking her up from her study group myself. Funny thing, Mrs. Patterson has never heard of any math study group meeting today. The world tilted sideways. David was at the library. Right now. Looking for Emma, who was supposed to be in a study group that didn't exist. David, Where's our daughter, Sarah? Emma was staring at me with wide, terrified eyes. Through the studio windows, I could see her teammates warming up for practice, completely unaware that Emma's world was about to explode again. I can explain everything, I said, buying time I didn't have. You have 15 minutes to bring Emma home. And Sarah? We're going to have a very long conversation about honesty and consequences. The line went dead. Emma was already gathering her dance bag, tears starting to fall. It's over, isn't it? He knows. I looked at my daughter, then at Coach Martinez, then at the regional championships packet that represented everything Emma had worked toward. David wanted honesty? Fine. It was time for complete, devastating honesty. Emma, leave your bag here, I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. We're going home to tell your father exactly what we've been doing and why. No more hiding, no more lies. Mom, he's going to lose his mind. Yes, he probably is. But sweetheart, we're done living in fear of your father's anger. As we walked back to the car, I realized this was it, the moment our secret rebellion became open warfare. The 15-minute drive home felt like descending into hell. Emma sat rigid in the passenger seat, her dance bag clutched against her chest like armor, while I rehearsed conversations that all ended in disaster. David's BMW was already in the driveway when we pulled up at 4:23 p.m. Through our front window, I could see a silhouette pacing back and forth in the living room, never a good sign. Mom, what if we just tell him the truth gradually? Emma's voice was barely a whisper. Like, start with how much better my grades have gotten since I went back to dance. Her grades had improved dramatically over the past 2 weeks. The confident, focused Emma who emerged from dance practice tackled homework with the same precision she brought to choreography. But David wouldn't see academic improvement, he'd only see defiance. Sweetheart, there's no gentle way to tell your father we've been lying to him for 3 weeks. We sat in the car for another moment, watching David's shadow move behind our living room curtains. Emma's phone buzzed with a text from Sophia, *, where are you? Coach Martinez is asking about your private lesson, *. The private lesson. I'd completely forgotten that Emma was supposed to work on her solo routine after regular practice today. Another $80 I'd paid, another lie I'd have to explain. Emma, before we go in there, I need you to remember something. I turned to face her fully. Whatever your father says, however angry he gets, you did nothing wrong. You're a talented, dedicated dancer who deserves to pursue her dreams. But I did lie to him. We both did. We protected something beautiful until I could figure out how to make it safe. There's a difference. David opened the front door before we could reach it, his face a mask of controlled fury. He was still wearing his navy business suit, but his tie was loosened and his hair looked like he'd been running his hands through it. Emma, go to your room. Your mother and I need to talk. Actually, I said, surprising all three of us, Emma stays. This conversation affects her future, so she deserves to be part of it. David's eyebrows shot up. In 16 years of marriage, I'd never contradicted one of his direct orders regarding Emma. Excuse me? You heard me. Emma, sit down. I gestured toward our kitchen table, the same place where David had originally delivered his crushing dance band 6 weeks ago. Emma looked between her parents like she was watching a tennis match, then slowly took a seat. David remained standing, looming over both of us in that intimidating way he perfected. Sarah, have you completely lost your mind? I specifically told you that Emma had to quit dance. Yes, I remember. I also remember you spending $1,200 on golf equipment last month while claiming we couldn't afford Emma's $400 monthly dance tuition. David's face went white, then red. How do you know about? He stopped himself, but too late. About your secret golf purchases? The ones you hid from our joint budget discussions? I pulled out my phone and opened the bank app Lisa had helped me access. November 15th, Dick's Sporting Goods, $649. November 22nd, private golf lesson, $200. November 30th, Scottsdale trip deposit, $450. Emma was staring at the numbers on my screen, her mouth slightly open. She'd been doing the math in her head. David had spent more on his hobby in 1 month than her entire dance program cost for 3 months. That's completely different, David snapped, but his voice had lost some of its authority. Golf is networking. Business development. Emma's dance classes are just what? Emma's voice cut through his explanation like a blade. Just the thing that makes me happiest? Just my best chance at college scholarships? Just the one place where I'm actually good at something? David turned his attention to Emma, his expression shifting to disappointed father mode. Sweetheart, your mother has filled your head with unrealistic expectations. College scholarships for dance are incredibly rare. Coach Martinez has placed 14 students in college dance programs over the past 5 years, I interrupted. 14 full scholarships worth over $280,000 total. She doesn't lie to parents about their children's potential because her reputation depends on accuracy. And I'm supposed to trust the word of someone who profits from your delusions? Emma stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Dad, why can't you just watch me dance? Just once, come to a practice or a performance and see what I can actually do instead of deciding I'm not good enough without ever looking. Because I don't need to see you prance around in a costume to know that dance isn't a viable career path for 99.9% of people who pursue it. What about the 0.1% who make it? What if I'm one of them? David's laugh was harsh and dismissive. Emma, you're 14 years old. You have no concept of how competitive the real world is. Your mother is setting you up for massive disappointment by encouraging these fantasies. I watched my daughter's face crumble at the word fantasies, and something inside me snapped completely. Regional championships are February 8th, I said quietly. Emma's competing in solo and group categories. College scouts will be there specifically to identify scholarship candidates. The silence that followed was deafening. David stared at me like I'd announced we were moving to Mars. What did you just say? Emma's registered for regional championships. She's been training for 3 weeks, and she's ready. David's face went through several colors before settling on a shade of red I'd never seen before. Over my dead body. Over my dead body. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. David's voice had dropped to that dangerous whisper that used to send Emma and me scurrying for cover. But today, something was different. Today, I didn't flinch. It's already done, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Entry fee paid, competition slot confirmed, coaching schedule set. Emma competes in exactly 5 weeks. David took a step closer to where I sat at the kitchen table, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Then you'll call them tomorrow morning and withdraw her. Get our money back. No. The single word seemed to echo through our kitchen. Emma's eyes went wide. In 16 years of marriage, I'd never given David a flat, unequivocal no about anything important. What did you just say to me? I said no, David. I will not withdraw Emma from the competition she's been working toward her entire dance career. David's face contorted with rage. Sarah, you've lost your goddamn mind. First you lied to me for weeks, now you're openly defying a direct order. A direct order? I stood up slowly, meeting his eyes for the first time in months. David, I'm your wife, not your employee. And Emma is your daughter, not your property. Don't you dare turn this into some feminist empowerment bullshit. This is about respect, about following the decisions I make for this family's well-being. Emma had gone very quiet, watching this confrontation unfold like she was seeing her parents clearly for the first time. Dad, why is it always about what you decide? When do Mom and I get a say in our own lives? David whirled toward her, his voice rising. When you're 18 and paying your own bills, you can make whatever stupid decisions you want. Until then, you live under my roof and follow my rules. Actually, I said, pulling out the folder Lisa had prepared for me, Emma's dance expenses come from my personal savings account. The account my grandmother left me that has nothing to do with your income or your rules. It wasn't entirely true, Lisa had been funding most of Emma's costs, but David didn't need to know that detail yet. David's eyes narrowed as he processed this information. Personal savings? Sarah, we agreed years ago that all major expenses would be discussed jointly. Like you discussed your $1,200 golf spending with me? Or your $3,200 Scottsdale trip that I found out about from our credit card statement? Emma's head snapped toward her father. $3,200? Dad, that's like 8 months of my dance tuition. My business expenses are investments in our family's future income, David said through gritted teeth. Your dance classes are money thrown away on impossible dreams. Then let me fail, Emma said suddenly, her voice stronger than I'd heard it in months. If my dreams are so impossible, let me compete and lose. Let me see for myself that I'm not good enough. Because watching you humiliate yourself in front of hundreds of people isn't something a loving father allows. Or because watching me succeed would prove you were wrong about everything. The accuracy of Emma's observation hit David like a physical blow. His jaw worked silently for several seconds before he found his voice again. Regional championships are off the table. End of discussion. David, I said quietly, Emma's competing whether you approve or not. The only question is whether you'll be there to support her. His eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made my stomach clench. If you go through with this ridiculous competition, there will be consequences, Sarah. For both of you. What kind of consequences? David's smile was cold and calculating. The kind that make you wish you'd remembered who makes the real decisions in this family. As he stalked out of the kitchen, Emma reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Mom, what did he mean by consequences? I squeezed her fingers, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. I don't know, sweetheart. But whatever he's planning, we'll face it together. The consequences started at 6:47 a.m. the next morning when I discovered David had drained my personal savings account. Insufficient funds, the ATM screen declared in harsh red letters. I stared at it in disbelief, then checked my phone banking app with trembling fingers. Account balance, $127.43. Yesterday there had been $3,200, my grandmother's inheritance that I'd carefully preserved for 15 years, plus the remainder of Lisa's transfer. Money that was supposed to cover Emma's competition costs, costumes, and emergency expenses through regionals. All gone. My phone rang immediately. David's name on the screen. Good morning, Sarah. I trust you've discovered my little financial adjustment by now. I was standing in the parking lot of our neighborhood bank, still in my pajamas and winter coat, trying to process what he'd done. David, that money was mine. My grandmother left it specifically. To you, yes. Which legally makes it community property in our marriage. I simply transferred it to our joint savings account where it belongs. The casual cruelty in his voice made my hands shake. Transfer it back. Now. I don't think so. Consider it insurance against any future poor decisions regarding Emma's activities. Through our kitchen window 50 yards away, I could see Emma getting ready for school, completely unaware that her competition dreams had just been financially assassinated. You can't do this. I can, and I have. Sarah, you seem to have forgotten how money works in this marriage. My income, my decisions. Your inheritance was a nice little nest egg, but it's much better invested in our family's actual future than your daughter's fantasies. I thought about Coach Martinez expecting payment for Emma's intensive training schedule. About competition entry fees and costume deposits. About the private lessons Emma needed to perfect her solo routine. What do you want? Emma withdraws from regional championships today. You call the studio, cancel everything, and we go back to our normal family routine. His voice softened with fake reasonableness. Sarah, I'm trying to save us from financial and emotional disaster. Emma's going to get crushed at this competition, and you're setting her up for devastating disappointment. And if I refuse? Then you'll discover exactly how expensive it is to support a teenage dancer with no income and no access to family funds. The threat was crystal clear. David controlled our joint accounts, our credit cards, our mortgage payments. He could cut off my financial access entirely, leaving me unable to support Emma's dancing or even basic living expenses. I need time to think. You have until tonight. Dinner conversation should be very interesting. As I drove home, my mind raced through impossible calculations. Emma's competition costs would total nearly $1,800 over the next 5 weeks. Lisa had already advanced us $1,500, money that was now locked in accounts I couldn't access. Coach Martinez's reduced rate still required $300 I no longer had. But there was something David didn't know, something I'd discovered during my sleepless nights researching divorce attorneys and custody law. My inheritance money being community property worked both ways. If David could access my accounts, then his secret golf expenditures were legally my money too. And hidden assets during marriage could become very expensive mistakes during divorce proceedings. I pulled into our driveway and saw Emma waiting by the front door, her dance bag hidden behind our porch planters where she'd started keeping it to avoid David's questions. Mom, you look terrible. What happened? Get in the car, sweetheart. We're making an emergency stop before I drop you at school. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Lisa in her law office conference room, watching my sister's expression grow darker as I explained David's financial maneuver. He drained your inheritance account? Lisa's voice was deadly quiet. Sarah, that's called economic abuse, and it's grounds for emergency court intervention. Can we get the money back? Better than that. We can freeze all marital assets pending a custody evaluation. Lisa was already pulling files from her desk drawer. David just made the biggest mistake of his life. Judges take a very dim view of spouses who weaponize finances to control their partner's parenting decisions. Emma had been listening silently, but now she spoke up. What does this mean for regionals? Lisa smiled grimly. It means your father is about to learn that stealing money to control a child's activities isn't just morally wrong, it's legally actionable. Emma, you're competing in February. I guarantee it. As we drove toward Emma's school, I felt something shift inside me, fear transforming into fierce determination. David thought he'd won by taking my money. He had no idea he'd just given me the evidence I needed to take everything else. February 8th, 6:23 p.m. Emma stood center stage at the regional championships, her crimson solo costume catching the spotlights as she held her final pose. The auditorium was completely silent for 3 heartbeats before erupting in thunderous applause. I was crying so hard I could barely see her radiant smile as she took her bow. In the seat beside me, Lisa squeezed my hand and whispered, "She's got this." Look at those judges. All 5 competition judges were scribbling furiously on their scorecards, and Judge Martinez, no relation to Coach Martinez, was actually wiping away tears. In 22 years of attending dance competitions, I'd never seen a more powerful performance. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer's voice boomed through the sound system. That was Emma Coleman from Riverside Dance Academy, performing Phoenix Rising, choreographed by Maria Martinez. Phoenix Rising. The title Coach Martinez had chosen felt prophetic now. Emma had literally risen from the ashes of David's control, transformed her pain into art, and delivered a performance that left 400 people breathless. But the most important person in that audience wasn't cheering. David sat 15 rows behind us, his arms crossed, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. He'd refused to speak to Emma before her performance, hadn't wished her luck, hadn't even acknowledged her when she waved from backstage. For 2 hours, he'd watched his daughter dominate every category she entered while his jaw grew tighter and tighter. Emma's group routine had placed second out of 37 teams. Her contemporary solo had just brought the house down. And in 20 minutes, we'd know if she'd earned one of the top 3 overall placements that guaranteed college scout meetings. Mom. Emma appeared beside our seats, still glowing from performance adrenaline. Did you see Coach Martinez crying? She said that was the best solo she's ever choreographed. I pulled my daughter into a fierce hug, breathing in her familiar scent of hairspray and dreams coming true. Sweetheart, you were absolutely magical up there. I'm so proud I can't even find words. The judges looked really impressed during my grand chute sequence. And when I nailed those triple turns, Emma's excited chatter stopped abruptly as she noticed David approaching. He moved through the crowd like a storm cloud, other parents instinctively stepping aside as he made his way toward us. His face was granite hard, but I caught something else in his eyes, something that looked almost like reluctant recognition. Emma, he said quietly when he reached us. She straightened her shoulders, chin lifted with the same defiance that had carried her through 5 weeks of secret training. Hi, Dad. They stared at each other for a long moment while Lisa and I held our breath. Finally, David's expression cracked slightly. That was actually quite good. Emma's face lit up like sunrise. Really? You thought so? You've clearly been working very hard. David's voice was grudging, but genuine. Your technique has improved significantly since I last saw you perform. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't admission that he'd been wrong. But for David, acknowledging Emma's talent at all was a seismic shift. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer interrupted. Please return to your seats for final awards. As we filed back into the auditorium, David caught my arm. Sarah, we need to talk after this is over. Yes, I agreed, we absolutely do. 15 minutes later, Emma Coleman was called as the overall junior division champion, earning a $5,000 scholarship to elite dance camp and guaranteed meetings with scouts from 7 colleges. David was the first person on his feet, applauding.